I return once more with another silly Pokédex order video. Today I'm going to show you just how many Pokémon you can obtain with a single save file of Emerald while obtaining each Pokémon in alphabetical order. I made videos like this for Fire Red and SoulSilver and will continue to do this for more games in the future. A link to the playlist is in the description, but you do not need to have seen them to understand this or anything like that. It's not episodic like some other series I've done. But if you do enjoy this, I highly recommend checking them out as well. The rules for this challenge are: in Emerald, I have to obtain as many Pokémon as I can in alphabetical order. Once I get one for the first time, none that appear before it can ever be obtained if I had to skip them, and this includes its evolutions as well. That would be the only rule, but technically that means I could beat the whole game with one Pokémon, which a million other people have probably already done. So the actual goal is to complete as much of the National Pokédex that can be obtained within one Emerald cartridge, with all of the Pokémon that I get being obtained in alphabetical order. If I have to skip a Pokémon, I can never get it. For example, when I reach Ninetales, since it doesn't appear anywhere, I have to skip it, and when I reach the letter V to catch Vulpix, I can't then evolve it since I already skipped Ninetales. It will make more sense once I start catching Pokémon. Trading or any other sort of external communication such as side games and events along with glitches are banned. Also, once I've gotten a Pokémon once, I am allowed to continuously get it again later, even if more Pokémon after it are obtained alphabetically. Other than that, anything goes. This incorporates all available Pokémon within one cartridge, not just ones that are in the Hoenn Dex. That means any Pokémon from Gens 1, 2 and 3 can potentially be obtained. The reason I'm playing Emerald is because if I was playing Ruby or Sapphire, there'd be no way at all to get any non-Hoenn Dex Pokémon, but Emerald added a bunch that are only in the National Dex. Despite that, there are still a huge chunk that are completely unobtainable in any of these three games. Specifically, every Pokémon you see here. They're all obtained either from Fire Red, Leaf Green, side games, or directly from events. So let's just ignore them. I also skipped all the Gen 2 starters. You can get them in Emerald, but you need a completed Hoenn Dex, and that ain't happening. Catching them all is not the aim of this challenge. Instead, I wanted to find out the absolute maximum amount of Pokémon that can be obtained within a single game while everything is obtained in alphabetical order. Also, I am aware that this is the alphabetical order that they are shown in English, so who knows, maybe in another language there's a higher number available. I did actually sit and calculate the number in German available in Kanto, and I was able to obtain 112 in Fire Red and 115 in Leaf Green, but I won't be doing any videos on that because I'd be sitting there butchering pronunciations for half an hour. And those are the rules. Now, before everyone clicks off the video due to it being longer than the average YouTube short, let's actually begin the video. Alright, so if you can sing the alphabet and you know which starters Gen 3 has, you'll know that Mudkip is first, skipping more than half of all Pokémon immediately. Not a great start, but it is what it is. As always, I set the time to be between 3 and 8. Mudkip evolves into Marshtomp, just a little bit before it in the alphabet, meaning just like in Johto, I can never evolve my starter to add to the misery. Next up is Muck. You can't get it in the wild anywhere, with Grimer being just slightly before Mudkip in the alphabet, so that's a no. Natu, however, can be caught in the wild, specifically in the Safari Zone. That'll be quite a trek. The Safari Zone is located after Fortree City, where you'd ordinarily get the 6th badge. Doing all of that with one Pokémon is a pretty daunting task. Due to HMs being required, you might think that this gets in the way, but Mudkip can learn Surf, Strength, Rock Smash, Waterfall and Dive, all required to beat the game. It can't learn Cut, Fly or Flash, but none are required to beat the game, they're just helpful. But that doesn't help me. I'm going to need to beat half of the game with just one Pokémon. Is what I thought at first, but it turned out that Natu is in fact impossible to get with these rules. There's a roadblock before Fortree City that will require me to have a full team, which I cannot have at this stage since I only have Mudkip, and I cannot add more of them or breed it. That does of course mean, however, that Nincada is next. Thankfully Nincada can be obtained in Route 116, which is accessible before getting a single badge. After catching one, I skipped Ninetales because it's before Vulpix, and then proceeded to catch another 4 Nincada to fill up my team. The reason for this was so that I could evolve Nincada without accidentally getting Shedinja as well. Before I go through the next little bit of the game, I'll just do my usual speech. If you like these videos, please give it a like, comment when something happens that you deem comment worthy, subscribe, watch my other videos, even the non-Pokemon ones, and spread the word about me to everyone. I put more effort into these videos than I do into my actual job, and to be honest, lately that effort has not been paying off, and I can't tell if it's because people are losing interest, or YouTube just isn't showing my videos to people, but either way, if you're here now, I'd really appreciate it if you could do all the usual good things, so that my channel can get another renaissance instead of fading into obscurity. Also, I'm just going to advertise my Twitch channel here, since every time I do it, I gain like 3 followers. It's KillerKiwi1642, and I've got a VOD channel where I upload these streams to YouTube. Every time I leveled up Mudkip from this point, it attempted to evolve into Marshtomp, so I did give it an Everstone when I found one. With Roxanne beaten, I headed to Granite Cave and just decided to do a lot of grinding. After many KOs and trips back and forth to the Pokemon Center, it reached level 20 and evolved into Ninjask, without its shell. I then skipped Noctowl. This would be obtainable in Emerald in the post-game, but not without Hoot Hoot, so I had to get Nosepass next. However, it requires you to use Rock Smash in Granite Cave, which I couldn't use outside of battle yet. I beat Brawly, but he only allows you to use Flash, though I did do that to get Steven and hand over the letter, and then return to Rustboro to get the EXP share. I rushed through the next few areas, got Rock Smash and beat Watson. I'm glossing over it in the footage, but it took about 20 attempts and required multiple grinding sessions for Mudkip and Ninjask to not get annihilated. Mudslap was very helpful with stopping attacks other than Shockwave from working. I then travelled all the way back to Granite Cave, smashed rocks for a while, and eventually found and caught Nosepass. I then headed on over to Fiery Path in order to catch my next team member, Numel. After that, I had to get Nuzleaf, which appears on Route 114. I was impatient, so I just biked there as fast as I possibly could, ignoring everything optional. And, well, impatience is a pretty bad thing when you're looking for a Pokemon with a 1% chance of appearing. If I was playing Sapphire, Nuzleaf would be impossible to obtain, and you'll see in a while that the number obtainable in Emerald will surpass Ruby and Sapphire by a lot more. But anyway, Emerald decided to make it ultra rare, so I was here for a while before it graced me with its presence, and with Nuzleaf caught, the next one was Octillery. You'll likely be thinking, Octillery doesn't appear in the wild, I guess we better move on to Oddish. Nope. It's not in the Hoenn Dex, but it can be obtained in the wild. And with what I have now, nothing is actually preventing me from catching it next alphabetically. It can be obtained in the Safari Zone, in the extension which only opens up once you beat the champion, and only in Emerald. Oh dear. Yeah, so unfortunately I have to make my way through the rest of the game with this delightful selection of Pokemon. Without thinking too much about that for now, I beat Maxie, Flannery and Norman, therefore being able to use Surf outside of battle. I indeed got Surf and Strength. And then I would have made my way east of Mauville, but I actually can't sweep the game aside right now with the 6 Pokemon I have access to. The reason? Castform. You're forced to go through the Weather Institute in these games, and then you get given a cast form, which of course begins with C. Now, if I was playing Ruby or Sapphire, all I would need to do here is beat Team Aqua or Magma with a full team, and that cast form would not be given to me. However, in Emerald, they instead made it so that if you have a full party, it then goes into your box. You can only turn it down if your team and all of your boxes are full. There is space for 420 Pokemon in the boxes, and I would need to fill up every single space in order to pass. This is why I couldn't get Natu. At the time, I had no way to fill up my team or boxes. You might be thinking, well, just play Ruby or Sapphire. But no, the point of this is to get the maximum number of them available, and Emerald has more than those two due to the addition of the National Dex exclusives, so I have to do this in Emerald. So how am I going to fill up all of my boxes? Catching Pokemon is a bad idea because of how limited my options are in terms of money making for buying Pokeballs. It's either keep defeating the same trainers on repeat using the Pokénav, or win big at the game corner to sell TMs, and both take ages. The best solution is breeding. I already had a bunch of Nincada, and because out of the only 3 Pokemon I actually was able to catch, it was the lowest hatch cycle, I placed 2 into the daycare, made sure they get along, and just biked for a long time. Thankfully I actually didn't need to hatch all of the eggs. They take up space in the boxes, so after getting 5 I deposit them and repeat. It didn't actually take that long to get them all, only a few hours. What you're seeing right now was the pace I was going at, so it took a bit less time than it would if I was a little kid on my GBA back in the day. So yeah, here we are. Every box completely full of eggs. I would need to hatch them eventually since you can't release eggs, but it'd be a while before that would become necessary. And with that colossal task out of the way, I was finally going to be able to proceed. Still with only 6 Pokemon in total though. While I'm in Route 118, I'll do my usual explanation of the fact that I'm not playing Omega Ruby or Alpha Sapphire, because once you reach this area I'm walking through right now in the remakes, Steven appears, stops you, drags you to Southern Island, and forces you to take Latios in Omega Ruby or Latias in Alpha Sapphire. That means if I was playing in the remakes, I would never be able to get past this part of the game as they both begin with L, which is of course before Mudkip. Oh, but you could just make this one exception. No, rules are rules. I'll just quickly say here though that in the next part of this series I'll be playing Platinum because I just do not want to play the Switch remakes. I'm sure anyone who played Platinum back in the day then played the remakes will understand why. Anyway, with that horrific workaround done, I beat Team Aqua at the Weather Institute, didn't get cast form, and continued with the story. I won't get into too many more specifics, but I headed into Fortree City and beat Winona, that did all the messing around with both of the evil teams, and I'd like to point out the fact that I didn't have any Pokemon with Fly, so I had to do all of this traversal manually. It was unbelievably tedious and took hours to make my way back and forth between all these different locations to progress the story. In between that, I reached Moss Deep City and beat Titan Liza, beat Magma some more, got Dive, and then did the remaining Team Aqua and Magma story, including the trek to and from Sky Pillar, also without the use of Fly. I was agonisingly close to Pelipper and Alphabet, but that stupid octopus was blocking me from doing that until I beat the champion. Anyway, after the crisis was averted, I entered Sootopolis, showed off me completing that final ice puzzle without stopping at all, and beat Hoenn, who has the best Pokemon, Crawdont. Just had to show it off in this video since it's way before M in the alphabet. Anyway, I beat him and had 8 badges. It was a bit annoying that I only had one Pokemon that could learn any of the water-type HMs, so the move deleter came to the rescue, removing Dive so I could teach Mudkip Waterfall instead. Getting to Victory Road, and after KOing all the trainers there, I reached the league. I already knew that I did not have the levels to take down the Elite Four and Champion, so spent some time knocking out wild Pokemon in Victory Road, and once my Pokemon were at a good enough level, I decided to take on the league. And on my first attempt, I was actually successful. Well, I say first attempt, but I needed to reload many times, but with that team I was able to take down Sydney, Phoebe, Glacia, Drake and Wallace, becoming the champion. Only took 2 days of playtime. I watched the credits, with it showing off all the many Pokemon I obtained on my way here, then after being sent home I got the National Dex and finally I could move this challenge forward. Though I rushed so fast I forgot to pick up any rods, so I picked up the good rod and then manually travelled all the way back to Moss Steep to get the super rod. Then I travelled all the way back to the Safari Zone entrance. I don't have a Pokéblock case. One sec. Right, okay, this place gets a huge extension once you get the National Dex, but only in Emerald. And here, you can catch a bunch of Pokemon not in the Hoenn Dex, Octillery being one of them, only appearing by using the Super Rod. Just a quick shout out to impatient past me who threw a ball at a Marl while mashing the A button. It didn't catch, but if it did, it would be game over. From that point on I decided to be a little bit more careful. Fishing in this pond with the Super Rod, I proceeded to look for Octillery. Oh, but you thought it was going to be a simple task? Think again, it's got a 1% chance of appearing. So I spent an excruciatingly long time trying to find Octillery. There were many Goldeen and Remoraid on repeat, and after what felt like an hour, it eventually appeared. And I was blessed with it being caught without running away. Wow, reaching letter O didn't take too many catches. Just look forward to Sinnoh, where Chimchar is first. Speaking of, that one's going to be the hardest by a mile. While in the zone I caught Oddish. No I didn't, I ran out of time. Right, I caught Oddish and then there was a very exciting one next. You'd never hear anyone say that about Pelipper under normal circumstances, it's why these challenges are so fun. Pelipper is the first Pokemon I could get that could learn Fly, meaning I finally no longer had to walk everywhere. I skipped Persian because the in-game trade Meowth was never available to me, and before going any further I realised that all my boxes were completely full. I had released a few of the Nincada, but now I had to hatch a lot of them, and release them as well. This was not a fun process, as you can probably guess, but once I had cleared a few boxes, I thought I had enough space for the rest of my catches. I swapped to the Acrobike, then headed back to the Safari Zone to catch Phanpy, as it only appears in an area that requires it. Gaining access to flying right before this was very fortunate. I skipped Pichu since you can't get it at all without having Pikachu, and therefore next up was Pikachu. It's pretty rare and I ran out of steps, so another 500 was forked over, and then I actually did find it. Oh, and Pineco also appears in the Safari Zone, specifically in the extension. And Pinsir, except it only appears in the area requiring the Mac bike, so back to Mauville I went for a quick trade before searching for a while. I'll just mention as well that 4 of the last 5 Pokemon have a 5% chance of appearing. The next one, however, doesn't have a 5% chance of appearing. It has a 2% chance. Plusle is very rare in Emerald, only being common in Sapphire, and it appeared very quickly. And I caught it. Poochyena is nice and common in Emerald though, so that didn't take long to find and catch. Then another trip to the Safari Zone was required, catching Psyduck. Easy and common compared to my next find, well, after yet again running out of steps and paying more money for re-entry. I searched for an eternity in the extension for the 1% Quagsire. It just had to be rude and be before Wooper in the alphabet. I am probably the first person to ever actually go out of my way to catch Octillery and Quagsire here instead of just catching an evolving Remoraid and Wooper. And you know what? It's an honour. I'm not going to make you sit through all of it though. I caught it. Done. I cleared out New Mauville and got the Thunderstone there, evolving Pikachu into Raichu. Only the second evolution of this whole run. I caught Ralts on Route 103, another nice rare one at 4% chance, and then headed back to Skypillar to say hello to a friend. Now, Rayquaza may seem like a formidable opponent I use a Master Ball on, but I had something much bigger planned for that, so I caught it in an Ultra Ball after a zillion resets. The Regis though? Nope. No Regice, no Regirock, no Registeel. They require you to have Relicanth and Wailord in your party to unlock their caves. Speaking of, next up was Relicanth. That is Clamperl though. Let's fast forward. It's another 5%er, so it took a while of looking. This was followed by heading back to the Safari Zone again for Remoraid, another extension exclusive, skipping Rhydon and catching Rhyhorn there as well. Roselia isn't found anywhere in Emerald, only Ruby and Sapphire, so it's a rare +1 for those games, and so I headed into Skypillar for Sableye, which I wouldn't be able to use if I was playing Ruby. You can't get Salamence in the wild, so next was Sandshrew, catching it in the desert and doing a tiny little grind to evolve it into Sandslash at level 22. I was enjoying the severe lack of grinds. I skipped Sceptile of course, and Seadra because it doesn't appear in the wild, catching Seaking in the Safari Zone, another annoyingly rare fishing encounter. I skipped Celio because no Spheal yet, and went searching for Seedot. When I found out it's got a 1% chance of appearing in Emerald, I checked on my Nuzleaf, which was female, so I stuck it in the daycare and somehow managed to breed it with an elephant, resulting egg, blessing me with a Seedot. I then returned to Route 114 where I caught Seviper, which doesn't appear in Ruby in case you were curious, and this was followed up by fishing up and catching Sharpedo. I didn't need to grind out another Nincada to level 20 because I never actually bothered to take one of them out of the daycare for ages, so it just needed one level up with a spare slot to evolve into Ninjask and get Shedinja. No Bagon meant no Shelgon, and so then I picked up the Leaf Stone on Route 119 to finally evolve Nuzleaf into Shiftry. Then there was Shroomish in Petalburg Woods, followed by smashing some rocks in the Safari Zone extensions for Shuckle. I went to Mount Pyre to catch Shuppet, Petalburg Woods for Silcoon, Route 113 for Skarmory, Route 116 for the very rare Skitty, then skipped Slacking in favour of the relatively rare Slackoth in Petalburg Woods. I then caught Slugma and then ran into an interesting and unexpected quandary. Smeargle is up next, and it's only found in Artisan Cave within Battle Frontier. However, to reach the cave you need to get past a Sudowoodo. This is the only Sudowoodo in the entire game and it never respawns after being caught, or knocked out. Because this Sudowoodo needs to be moved to reach Smeargle, I actually have to make a choice. KO Sudowoodo and catch Smeargle, meaning I have to skip Sudowoodo, or skip Smeargle now and catch Sudowoodo later. It won't make a difference to the total at the end since neither of them can evolve and Smeargle is the only Pokemon that appears in Artisan Cave, so I genuinely was able to choose, but I couldn't get both, and that was not the first time in the series I ran into a problem like this. I opted for skipping Smeargle because I like Sudowoodo more. I also later found out some conflicting info about this online with a few people saying it could respawn if knocked out, but I'm choosing to just ignore that and assume that, like every other pre-Platinum game, static encounters never respawn after being knocked out. Oh, you need a Wailmer Pail to wake it up, so I got that before I forgot. Next up was Snorunt, like usual showing off why I set the time to be during low tide, caught Snubbull in the extension, Solrock and Meteor Falls, not available in Sapphire, caught Spheal, which I accidentally sped up too much, so here's more Spheal screen time. You're welcome. Then there was Spinarak in the extension, Spinda, Spoink, Stantler in the extension, skipped Starmie because it doesn't appear anywhere, but I caught Staryu, and then headed back to the Battle Frontier. I watered the tree, waking up Sudowoodo. After catching it, I didn't go any further because I locked myself out of getting Smeargle. Sunflora was skipped since it's not in the wild, but Sunkern is. The Emerald total was racking up a lot more than Ruby and Sapphire, but those games obtained one more due to Surskit not appearing anywhere in Emerald. And then I caught Swablu, which I've seen a million of while looking for Nuzleaf. Skipped Swalot, as it's not in the wild, and Swampert because Marshtomp decided to rudely have a name before Mudkip in the alphabet. I headed to the hidden area of Route 115 and caught Swellow, swiftly followed by Tailo, went back to the Safari Zone extension for the nth time to catch Teddiursa, which was a nice high level, so no real grinding would be needed later. Then caught Tentacool, also at a nice high level. I leveled it up once to evolve it into Tentacruel. I skipped Torchic of course, thanks to Mudkip being in the way, caught Torkoal and Trapinch. Treecko was skipped, I caught Tropius and evolved Teddiursa into Ursaring with a single level up. Then there were 2 grinds, evolving Trapinch into Vibrava, followed by Slakoth into Vigoroth. There really weren't many grinds at all in this video though, which I was very thankful for. I skipped Vileplume since I never got Gloom, caught the extremely rare Volbeat, the not so rare Voltorb, the slightly more rare but not really that rare Vulpix, caught Wailmer in the sea, leveled it up a bunch to evolve it into Wailord, skipped Walrein since I skipped Celio, skipped Weezing since it doesn't appear anywhere, fished up Whiscash in Meteor Falls, caught Whismur, skipped Wigglytuff because no Jigglypuff, caught Wingull and Wobbuffet, caught Wooper in the Safari Zone extension, and then also caught Wurmple. That flow of catches was halted when I went to Laveridge Town to pick up the Wynot egg. Then I hatched it, got the Acrobike again, and for the last time I headed into the Safari Zone to catch Xatu. I skipped Zangoose since it's exclusive to Ruby, and caught the nice and easy Zigzagoon. And it's finally time to end this now. I headed into Meteor Falls, and as is tradition now, in order to guarantee a catch from my final Pokemon, I threw the Master Ball at Zubat, therefore completing my A to Z Pokédex journey in Emerald. With that done, I had obtained only 78 Pokemon. A lot less than Kanto and Johto, though if I was playing Ruby I'd only get 66, and in Sapphire a measly 63, and in Omega Ruby 46, and Alpha Sapphire 43. Thank you very much for watching as always. 99% of people stop watching as soon as they hear me say that, so for the folks that are still here with a few seconds to go, have a picture of the best Pokemon character. See you in the next one.